Welcome to the SubHub podcast. I'm MK Sullivan.
And I'm Danny Moreno.
Today we have the race directors for the Sunapee Scramble, which this year is the USATF Mountain Running Championships. We have Tom Hooper and Paul Kirsch. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Yeah. Do you guys want to give the listeners a little bit of background on who you guys are, how you got started in race directing, all that good stuff?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Tom Hooper from 603 Endurance out of New Hampshire. We, I guess started at the base level with 5Ks, 10Ks, running world, and then kind of just moved our way up. And then, then the next step is always putting on your own race. And that started back in, 2010 was the beginning of 603. And then, a few years later, we started our first race, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. And then now we put on, 7 to 10 races between, depending on the seasons.
I'm Paul Kirsch. I've been race directing for 20 years, but if I want to add in the cool New Hampshire thing, before that, I was the trail boss for a 60-mile sled dog race here in New Hampshire. So that's kind of like what got me into, if I can do a sled dog race for 17 hours helping with volunteers, I think I can organize a mountain race. And I've been directing a bunch of national championships and things. I started the Loon Mountain Race as well, which now Tom took over, 603 took over, what was it, right before the pandemic?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. And then been involved with the U.S. Mountain Running Team since 2010 as the under-20 coach. And Tom actually joined the team staff last year, helping out at the World Champs in Thailand.
That's awesome. And for our listeners too, Loon Mountain and Cranmore Mountain, which I believe is also part of this series, those have historically been U.S. selection races in the past. And I have ran Loon Mountain, I think twice now. And
Yes.
That race never gets easier. It's always pretty hot. And the last part is called the Boss Hill or something like that.
Walking Boss, yeah.
Oh, Walking Boss, yeah. And that is true to its name. There's very few people who could run that last part. So if you're looking to get your will tested and whatever you believe in tested, I highly recommend checking out those races for the best reasons possible. So just a little plug into there for the East Coast
It
trail
didn't make
scene.
it sound like you're coming back.
No, I'll go back at some point. I came back twice. No, but they're amazing and they definitely test you in the best way possible, which I think a lot of people, that's what they're seeking out. So yeah, a big reason why we have you both here today is how Sunapee is a selection race this year, and it's taking over the course of 2 days. Which is very new. This has never been done before. In the past, it's only been one selection race for either the uphill or the up down. Usually it's a 2-loop course. Sometimes it's a 1-loop course, from my understanding. Paul, correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, how did you guys select this race to be, or this race weekend to be the selection races?
Well, I guess going back a little bit, yeah. So mountain running champs, like before it all got combined into one thing, they alternated it. Every other year was up only or up down. And so like you had mentioned, Cranmore, that's an up down. Loon was an uphill championships. And with Thailand last year, and I know, Danny, you were at Worlds in 2019 in Argentina, and even that was so much bigger than it was before because they had combined the short mountain race with the long mountain race. Well, Thailand last year was like a European trail running festival. Like it was just so much bigger. It was so cool. And having the 2 short races, having the 2 long races this year for 2023, we're like, well, why don't we do the champs all on the same weekend too? Since there are people that, you can do an uphill race one day and do an up down the next day. They're both short enough. And so actually a couple of people involved with the mountain team had approached us and said, could you do a race? And so the first thing was finding a mountain. Well, the first was finding a mountain far enough south in New Hampshire that we hoped would be snow free. at the end of April.
Explain why. So because of the pandemic, everything got switched 1 year closer, right? Because we normally it's every 2 years. So we have a very short turnaround time from November to April to when we need to be in Austria in June. So that's why they came and said, do you want to do a race in April in New Hampshire? And then we were like, that's a bad idea. We don't know what we're going to have for snow. So it's going to work out, but it could have been a bad idea.
Yeah. And so that's why we kind of headed south. And Sunapee was very into the idea of hosting the race. Tom had approached them. And so the very first Sunapee Scramble will occur. So
that's awesome.
Is Sunapee a ski resort?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's now owned by Vail.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember when I saw that World Champs was in June, I was like, how are they going to fit all these qualifying races in between November and June? But all been figured out and done.
In the grand scheme, it kind of looks a little disorganized and crammed, but this will never happen again. Hopefully, this should be a 2-year process versus hey, you have 6 months, go.
Well, we definitely have empathy because, like MK said, I think every athlete was like, what are they going to do? How are they going to do this? So to see it all come together, we're just really grateful that you guys are able to pull all these opportunities together, which is awesome. Considering it's a ski resort, how would you describe the courses or how do you anticipate them to be on race day?
They should be all right. So we have a service road that's plowed, which is super steep, but it is a plowed road. And then we put on another race called the Ragged 75 stage race and 50K. The 50K is the national championship this year. We're going to use a little bit of that trail on the backside of Sunapee. So I believe it's going to be okay. We'll know closer to it, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah. So the course may be a little fluid from the current mapped course. Depending on snow conditions, where we might cross a trail one place or another. Yeah.
We have a plan A, a plan B, and plan C.
And there's rain in the forecast right now. We're so excited about that.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah.
Would it be a mountain running championship if it was just sunny and?
Well, no, we just want snow to melt.
We need the rain.
We just want buckets of rain to melt snow.
Yeah. Might have a little bit of washed out trails, but at least it's not snow. Can you guys give us like a little bit of a rundown of just what your A courses look like for the championships?
Yeah. So, coming out of the parking lot, I think Paul's on the same boat. I'm opposed to having bottlenecks. So I think out of the gate, you'll have a wide open start just because these guys are so quick. So it's not no throwing elbows, get them out into a parking lot, stay straight down, and then up the super steep service road. Then it'll dump out onto a really technical trail straight up the south side of Sunapee. Danny will hate this, but it's going to be at the same percentage grade as Upper Walking Boss at some point. And then it'll hit the summit. The mountain side or the mountain race. So there's vertical, and now Paul and I were talking about this. We kind of need to keep the verbiage all the same because Worlds calls it mountain. So there's vertical, there's mountain, there's short trail, there's long trail. There's 4 things. So the mountain portion will just be a shorter version, almost the same amount of vertical as Worlds. We tried to, emulate that as much. We may have a little bit more vertical than Worlds, but it'll be close enough.
And one of our goals too, we're trying to make sure we don't have too much downhill on the uphill race, which maybe sounds funny, but on the vertical, we didn't want to try and get more vertical by going downhill a little bit or anything, just because we want people to have fresh legs for the second day as well, for the real up down.
And even the one VK that I've done has a downhill in it. And your heart rate is just so high. And then you try to run hard downhill and you're like, oh my gosh, am I going to pass out? Am I going to trip on something? Because my heart rate is so high. So I think that's appreciated coming from somebody who's only run 1 vertical kilometer. Officially, at least. What type of athletes do you guys think tend to do well at these races? What kind of athletes would you suggest should sign up for your championship?
Well, are we talking that distance, or are we talking New Hampshire trails? Because I think there's a difference. I think that
we're talking about Sunapee. We're talking about Sunapee weekend. Yeah.
I mean, you have the usual suspects that are just phenomenal runners, but I think that there's a lot of college kids that are coming out that should try it, because it's a shorter distance. You don't need an ultra, an ultra vest. You don't need a crew. You don't need just come out, pair of shoes and go. And I think that they could do really well. I think that there's going to be a lot of people we have no idea who they are, because they want to make a name for them. They, even when now they're in college, they can get sponsorships. Like that old adage is gone. So it's interesting. I think it's because it's a shorter distance. I think that's perfect for everybody.
Well, one of the cool things, and I, say this even about your podcast, that I'm so excited about is, I was joking with Tom earlier, like there's a certain amount of people, if I say, yeah, I run trails, and the immediate next step is, oh, what ultras do you do? And I don't. And that's okay. I love ultras. But there's a lot of really cool short races. And I love, like, if you look at, like, there's probably more people running sub ultras on trails than there are ultras. And I think this is such a great opportunity for somebody right after college that says, hey, I want to try this out. Where, like Tom said, you don't have to learn the gear. You don't have to learn fueling. It's like a really bad cross-country race in many ways. And I think that's a cool opportunity. I think we're seeing more sub-ultra people also get sponsorships from being on the shorter teams, or, doing the Solomon Trail Series, where before it was like, oh, I've got to go up to the higher level to be able to hope to get a real sponsorship. And so, like, that's what we're excited about, is there's been a lot of buzz and interest on this race. We have like 30 elite men and women that, any of them could make the team. I mean, there's some that I think I think are 100% going to make the team. I'm not going to say that, but there are others, like there's wide open spots there. And that's really exciting, that it might be somebody coming out of college. Like, I think there's 4 sub 14 5K guys, for example. And, who knows what they'll do going uphill, but that's neat. And I love that mixture you get in these short races.
Yeah. And it's great too. Like, you can run it back. Like, if you have a first tough day, it's not like so much sting in your legs that you can't come back the next day and potentially get a spot on that team. For example, if I was trying to do like the marathon champs, and you're like, all right, you didn't make it today, but like, let's run it back tomorrow. I'd be like, heck no, I am down for the count. That was my chance. So it's nice to have, multiple opportunities and have those people a chance to double back. And for like a lot of collegiate athletes, they're used to doubling. So like, having this kind of format in trail running, I think also attracts those athletes that are like, oh, I do that at championships all the time. So it's just some of that familiarity, and just inviting more people to the sub ultra space. And you don't even have to be trying to make a team, and you could come out and be part of this festival. And it's not too much to, hike the VK and be out there, and then maybe you run the second day. It's just very consumable distances, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. And kind of related to that, like the race is part of a couple different mountain series, which they're open to everybody. And that's kind of the goal is, you don't have to be trying to make the team. Like you said, Danny, it's anybody. Like the USATF New England mountain circuit that's been going on for almost 20 years. There's men and women in their 70s, 60s, down to teens that are doing that series. They're not trying to make the team, but they're getting this great experience out there. And like the first day of Sunapee is the perfect opportunity if you want to check out a mountain race. It's 4 miles. How bad can 4 miles really be?
Oh, yeah. How bad could it really be?
How bad? It's not bad. No, I love that. So you guys, that series has 6,200 $100 in prize money for the series. How much prize money does the championships have?
We're at what, 6,500, I think, Tom?
Yeah, $6,500.
Yeah. And another part of that it isn't prize money, but we have been able to give a lot of comp entries or other support to people who wouldn't necessarily win prize money, but we're trying to just get them there.
And discounts to U20s.
Definitely.
Yeah, and that's right. Actually, too, we've got the Youth Trail discount as well. The thing Max King started to try and encourage younger runners. I don't know. Do you guys know Josh Eberly and his trail team that he has? I'm trying to remember the school. It's
Western?
Western.
Oh, yeah.
He's bringing like 5 runners to the race.
That's
and
awesome.
They're all 20 or under. So, we've got, and I should give a plug there. The one series that it's in, it's sponsored by Northeast Delta Dental, which probably as you're sitting around going, well, of course, who would sponsor a mountain race than a dental insurance company? Northeast Delta Dental is probably the biggest sponsor of races in New England. No joke.
By far.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they sponsor everything from snowshoe races to the Mount Washington Road race, to this race, to other races we're involved with. And it's kind of cool. Their CEO, Tom Raffio, he's a runner. And he's very much into, health and dental health. And he just wants to promote people to be out there and be doing healthy things. And so he's just always looking for ways to sponsor events. So I bet we're the only national championships with a Delta insurance or with a dental insurance as the title sponsor.
That's amazing. Yeah. Shout out to Northeast Delta Dental. You guys hit the jackpot. I feel like that's one of the most difficult things with being a race director is trying to find those sponsors to have someone that is so personally invested in the sport is just like an extra plus.
It's really hard. That's one of the top things when we do these, do the podcasts and talk to these people out west. You guys have, the West Coast has so many sponsors. We tell them we're doing this in New England, and they're like, "Yeah, we're good, thanks." It's really hard being in the East Coast with talking to shoe companies and nutrition and stuff like that, and they want nothing to do with it. Even though we put on two national championships this year, and it is just beating your head against the wall. It's the hardest thing for us.
I don't get that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you think that that's just because we've talked about this a little bit on previous episodes? We feel that East Coast trail running is just really underappreciated in the US for some reason. Do you feel that that's why it's so difficult to get these sponsors?
I think some of it, all the companies are based out west. So you already have personal relationships going on. I think that's part of it. There aren't many, Innovate used to be based on the East Coast, and they would sponsor some stuff. But I think that's part of it. But otherwise, I don't know. And what I think's ironic too, our trails, if you're looking to race in Europe, come to the White Mountains and you can get, the crap beaten out of you and learn what it's going to be like to go run in Italy or wherever.
But I think that's part of the problem, right? If you look at a shoe company, do you bring your shoes to New England? They don't last very long.
Yeah,
So
you want those butter trails.
Right. You can go out west all day long with 500 miles on your shoes. Perfect. Done. You come to the White Mountains.
But
they last forever. They're so durable. You come here and it's one Pemi loop and they're done. So I think we have New Balance, Saucony, Puma in our backyard. They don't want anything to do with it. So, but they don't test out here either. It's weird. You look at Puma, they send everything to Washington and Oregon.
Interesting.
So, So I don't have the answer of why sponsorship is super hard for us, but it is.
Well, yeah, like Danny said, it's good that you guys have somebody so dedicated to the sport that's willing to help you guys out. And so I just want to stay on the race series for a second. It's 7 races. When is the first one and when is the last one? Do you guys is there like a point system, or are they all kind of separate events throughout the summer?
Yes and yes. Yeah. So it's I think it's 4 out of 7 is the point scoring for it. And it's like the Mount Washington, I think the last race in the series is at the end of August. There's a race to the top of Vermont. I think that's the last race. And in between, there's a variety of other uphill races, some in Vermont, some in New Hampshire. The Mount Washington Road Race is one. There's a new race that started last year called Race the Cog. I don't know if you're familiar with Mount Washington, but there's a cog railway that goes up one side of it. And so this new race, you literally race the cog going up it. And so that's in the series. And then there's some other smaller races as well in that series. And then there's actually another series, which is the USATF New England one. And that's a 10 race series that goes all the way through October. And like the interest there is if you do 7 out of those races, you can get a bypass for the Mount Washington Road Race the next year, because that's by lottery only. And that guarantees you a spot in the race. So that's why we typically have like 150, 200 people that'll do that series just to guarantee they can get into Mount Washington the following year.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I can second all that East Coast talk, in that I feel like it is a consensus across athletes that we understand that East Coast trails are some of the hardest trails, if not the hardest trails in the United States. And if you want to get for Europe, you do racing over there. The rock is the same, but just like the technicality is just on a different level. And so with Sunapee, for example, you guys have a great list of elites that are coming, where I personally can't really pick. Like, I have some favorites, but like, it's very interchangeable with all the places of who's actually going to be potentially making the team. And so how did that kind of like elite recruitment process look like? Were you emailing people? How are you like getting word out for people to come to this race?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was sliding into people's DMs. Hey, we have a race coming up. You'd be great for this. That's basically how it went. There was a lot of talk when we were in Thailand at Worlds, going over it. Everybody had questions for us. What's it going to be like? Can you tell us more? Well, and then I think that gained a lot of chatter just because of the people that were there. And we had such a great time in Thailand. They wanted to go back, so they were all excited about it. But yeah, then it's basically just social media, emails, and then it just kind of has gone from there. Yeah, and with the Andy Wacker and Max King with their trail thing, like that's been fantastic to work with those guys. That's really helped out as well. So
yeah, and some of the people, as Tom said, we reached out directly. I think we got a big boost from Thailand with, even on the ultra side and the men's team, how the women's team did, which I think they were they silver in the 40K? I don't even remember. And then how Allie Mack did, and then, gold for that team, bronze for the women's team. So I think there was a big focus because of Thailand that all of a sudden, I think there were more people going, hey, I want to, try out for this team, because like we have people who have applied who can't make it to Sunapee, who have applied by resume in case there's a spot that opens up. And we've never had that level of interest, especially in the short stuff. And then like some people like we knew would be coming, like the Grayson Murphys and the Joe Grays and stuff. One that we are super, super excited is this is going to be Ali Ostrander's first trail race back. And so I know like there's going to be all eyes on her, from normal and stuff. And we're just super excited. Like I got to know her a little bit at Worlds when she was, she was a junior then. She won the gold medal as a junior in 2015 in Wales, and then, went off to college and do stuff. And so I'm so excited to see her back on the trail scene. And I'm really, looking forward to how well she's going to race. Trying to think, Tom, other people.
I think it's the people that we don't know. Every day we go through the list, and we know most of the people, but you look at some of these resumes and you're like, wow, we were just talking about earlier, somebody that did really well at Broken Arrow, and then won the crown jewel at Broken Arrow, doing all the distances. But when you look at ultra sign up, the rankings are they're so skewed. You just don't know.
Yeah, they're so odd.
They're so odd. You almost have to go in and pull out like UMTB and ITRA indexes just to kind of figure out like, wow, they're legit.
Well, there's one that's funny that Tom and I have laughed about. Like if you just go in and say, wow, who are the good runners that are coming to Sunapee? Well, Allie Ostrander has a 0 rating on ultra sign up.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to be how she'll do, but
yeah, that's my guess as well. Yeah, you guys sent us the elite list, and I was going through. We lost Danny for a second, but she'll be back soon. So I was going through the list, and it seems to me, I don't know what your guys' thoughts on it, but it seems to me like the women's side definitely has some veterans in it, but there's a lot of young athletes or athletes that are kind of coming back into the trail scene, like Allie Ostrander. But the men's side is kind of like, there's a lot of like veterans in it. And there's like a handful of younger kids, but a lot of older guys that are coming into older. I say older, they're like in their 30s, but
Max,
coming
she
into
just called you old, just to give you a heads up, Max.
Oh yeah, and Maxine. So that's just so curious. I'm wondering, like, what you guys think about like the men's field versus the women's field.
I think that's what we're kind of talking about. Like, there's kids that are coming that are just going to be studs, that are just going to go redline the entire time, just everything they've got. So if some of these guys play it smart and tactical.
Yeah, it may not.
Do they do better, or is it too short where these kids just hammer and it screws up everything?
Yeah, definitely.
I love that. The kids are coming. It's like a quote. The kids are coming.
Well, I think what changed a lot is, and this is going to go to ultra, but you look at Adam Peterman, right? Like to see that he was, okay at steeplechase, and then his coach was basically like, "Thanks for 4 years. Take a hike." Like those kids now must be like, see that and be like, all right, well, maybe I didn't, like, Nike's not knocking down my door. Hope is not knocking down my door. I want to try this. Maybe this is my jam. You know what I mean? So maybe that's where the fire comes from. You see somebody that was kind of shunned, and all of a sudden, boom, number one,
And just like, there's like multiple times through your life when your body changes, like physically as well. And so everyone always thinks like college is the end all. Like you hit that young puberty and it's like, all right, this is my body. But like something changes, like once you're 20, 22, 25, like you just start gaining different types of power and strength, which I think is really suitable for the trail running. And like a 10K is pretty short. So like, people make you feel like, oh, you're tapped out. But there's a lot of trail runners whose PRs, like on paper, don't look that fast, or like they weren't all American, but like plug them into like an hour race and they can just sustain that. And like their strength is there. So I 100% agree. Like people, younger athletes, like collegiate athletes, it's like, yeah, you might not be a 5 or 10K runner, but like you can crank uphill for an hour and like your heart rate can be 180, and like that's your superpower. Like, maybe it wasn't a 14-minute race, which people make it seem like in college.
Well, and related to that, I was thinking one of the trail team members who's going to be there, Alex Lawson, she's a Nordic skier. So speaking of engine going uphill, and like she was, I think, 3rd at Loon last year, but she was second fastest up Upper Walking Boss for women, because she was just flying up there with, the ski engine. And so I'm really curious to see, like, she ran Cranmore last year. She did Washington. She did another race that Casey Enman organizes, and she won 2 out of 3 of those. So I'm very curious to see how she does. There's actually somebody in the U.S. Biathlon Development Program who's racing. Same thing, same engine. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, especially on the uphill, versus I do think the up down races, because it's 2 laps, it's just a different type of like mind game, pain game. because it's like there's something about like the second lap, and I am not a good downhiller, but how like no matter how hard you run or don't run the first downhill, the second uphill is always like 100 times steeper than the first uphill on like one of these short multi-lap races. And so I'm really curious to see like who's leading at the end of the first lap versus who's actually, leading at the second descent and stuff. It's going to be fun to see, because that's always just, it's a weird thing. Some people are good at, like Max King is really good at up down stuff. I'm really curious to see how he's going to do. So it's Andy Wacker. And I don't know if Andy's racing or not. Well, he is, but I know he had surgery scheduled at some point. But anyway, it's going to be interesting to see, how some people do that. Maybe they don't do well. Like Danny, you were saying, they don't do well on the climb. And then the next day they come back and blow people out of the water, which is going to be fun to see.
But then you put him against the veteran. Like, where does Casey Emmon, fill out the list? Like, do you ever count her out? Again,
she's like female Max Keen for me. It's like, never count her out. If there's blood in the water, make sure you're not within 10 meters of her, because she'll come find you. So people are going to listen to this that, either already signed up for the race or are curious about it, and maybe they're going to sign up. Just to conclude this kind of like race course preview aspect, do you think there's any codes to crack, or do you feel like there's a couple ways to be successful at this race?
I think you have to be a Swiss Army. It's Swiss Army knife. You got to be good at everything. I think you're going to have like the access road. You got to be fast. When you hit the technical stuff, you got to be really good at that. And when you come down, it is steep. It is a steep, slippery, ski trail. So I think you really have to be good at everything.
Yeah. Plus, if it's a little slushy, it'll be extra slippery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll have some veteran tactics versus newbie dumb luck.
Right.
Well, and it'll be interesting. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Eric Blake, he was on the mountain team a bunch of years. Well, his nickname in college was Quadzilla. And he's like still winning the Mount Washington race in his 40s. If, it's him and Joe Gray battling out every year, just about. And he's running. Will he make the team at 42? Who knows? Because he's all uphill engine. Like, he's insane. He can't run downhill at all. Like, it's funny. I remember him talking about training. Like, his training for Mount Washington, he does purely on a treadmill because he doesn't want to have to run back down the hill he just ran up, that type of thing. But he's insane in terms of how much stuff. And so I'm curious to see like other people like that who are, really good climbers. They may surprise some people who are holding back for the next day. But then you have like downhillers like Corey Dow, she's New Hampshire based. She's member 603, but she was on the team last year. She just raced this past weekend or 2 weekends ago. We have these races in New England called Winter Wild, which is you pick your footwear to go up, and it's an up and down ski area, like before the ski area opens. So you can do micro spikes, skis, snowshoes, like heavy metal division is snowboard. And Corey was like, she tied for first with the top man, but like she was like 40 seconds behind before the downhill started. So she's like so crazy on the downhill. It'll be interesting to see, like, she's going to eat up mud, snow, anything. I think she's in fact not racing on Saturday. So she's fresh on Sunday because the up down thing is more her jam.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I didn't realize, I guess that does make sense that some people would omit on Friday and just do Saturday or vice versa. Yeah. Never count out locals is what I've learned. Especially on the East Coast. Do not count out anyone on the East Coast. Even if like they've only ran a couple races and it's on the East Coast, don't count them out. That's for sure.
Most of our East Coast great runners all live on the West Coast now. I mean, you look at Morgan, Zach, Noah, they were all Dan, all of them. David Sinclair.
Yeah,
Jeff Colt. You took them all.
I love this conversation about like the veterans versus the newbies though, because I think something that like Danny and I started this whole podcast for was like people just assume that with sub ultra, like it's kind of like a young person's game. Like, oh, you do sub ultra when you're in your 20s and then you move on to the long stuff. But I love this because like you've got, Max King obviously out here vying for an uphill spot. And like you don't have to move on to long stuff as if the short stuff is what you're good at. I mean, he's good at long stuff too. So that's kind of a bad example. But there's a ton of people in here that are just like crushing the uphills in their 40s, and they don't have to move on to 100K to be successful.
Yeah, Joe Gray's been a perfect example of that. And not that she's over 40, but Grayson Murphy hasn't moved up either.
Oh,
and, I know she's going to be up there crushing it. We were already talking that it's kind of cool. We were doing the math, and every US world champion will be there. It looks like who has ever won gold at Worlds, either junior or senior, is going to be there, which is just super fun because like Casey and Max are the veterans there, but then you got like Grayson, Allie Mack, Allie O, who won it as a junior. I think Mandy Ortiz may be coming. She's the other junior. So that's kind of a fun, that's never happened before, that every world champion the US ever had in short racing is going to be there, which is super cool.
Yeah, that's incredibly cool because I'm just trying to think of a track equivalent. If you had like a 1500 where every champion was there from the past decade or so, it's like your mind would be blown. It's like a tournament of champions, unexpectedly, but in the best way possible. It just shows like the longevity that you can have in this sport if you stay healthy and are excited about it.
Yeah, for those listening, the years that we have for world champions in this race we have 2 from 2011, Allie O at 2015, Joe Gray at 2016, Grayson Murphy at 2019, and Allie Mack at 2022. So over a decade of world champions racing at Sunapee this year.
That's amazing. Cool. Yeah. And just showing like how I feel that when I first started running in Europe, it was like the Europeans are dominant, but we've always been knocking on the door and have been there and have been bringing home the championship crowns from the world championships. So yeah, just another call to action. If you haven't signed up and you really want to be on a team, like this year could be another historic year where we bring back that gold and maybe a couple other golds in these classic and the vertical mountain races. Because again, these are the mountain races and we have the 2 trail races, not to make this sport more confusing. So that.
Well, and I was going to say, Danny, like you've been on world teams and MKU soon will be on one.
Yes.
There's something, no matter what, Len, I'm not saying either one of you are cynical, but like even the most cynical person I know, when they put on the Team USA jersey, the cynicism pretty much drains out of them. Like it's pretty cool just to see. And like, that was so cool last year in Thailand, because suddenly it was 40 athletes instead of 16 or 25 or whatever. And I don't know anybody who's been in the team who hasn't, no matter who their sponsor is or anything, that wasn't excited. Like, I'm wearing Team USA gear. And when the gear comes in the mail and everything else. So, I mean, Danny, when that happens, It's just a cool experience.
I'm a crybaby, so I cry every time.
I'll probably cry.
Beautiful. I love my country.
I think we forgot one thing though. I think we forgot to mention that some of Team Canada's coming. So we have to throw that in there, that we're looking at elites, and we didn't put in Team Canada. Like, there's still people that could mess up this finish for everything. They won't be selected, but it's still, if you're looking at just the race itself, that's going to be kind of cool.
I actually that was going to be like my next set of questions, is like, I was really confused by that. So can they displace people?
Well, not from the team spots.
Right.
Okay.
But from prize money, sure.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know, who is it? Remy, is it LaRue?
Yeah.
And it's honestly, it's an easy straight shot down from Quebec. to come to New Hampshire. So that's part of it. So we've got a bunch coming, but there's a couple coming from BC as well. And a few of them were top 15 at Worlds last year in short stuff. So, so that'll be interesting to see. I know they're really excited. It's like because their qualifier races were actually before Thailand, I'm pretty sure. And now it was like somewhat named by resume. And so I think for them, this is just a chance, like what a great tune-up to race against, top Americans as well, or I should say top United States. They're Americans too, I guess.
I think the community of it is cool because now, when you go to Austria, you already know some people. Hey, what's going on? Good to see you. That kind of thing. Like, I think that's pretty neat that they're coming down here. So when we see them in Worlds, we kind of hang out.
When we're actually hoping some juniors are going to come too. The U.S. junior teams, the under 18 team that races in Annecy will be named in another week or so, and then the under 20 team that goes to Austria will be named in like April 22nd, I think. So we're hoping a few of them will come too, at least run the uphill. So that'll be a neat experience for them too, hopefully.
Yeah, and having those world-class Canadians really elevates the race for the U.S. athletes as well. That'll be so fun.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I was confused. I was like, do they have dual citizenship? And they're like trying to get on the U.S. team, but that makes a lot more sense as to why they're coming.
Do you guys have any predictions? Do you have any? If you had to throw down some names, who are your top four, men and women?
Oh man, Danny, I'm going to let you take this one.
You're going to offend somebody, so you might as well just go.
I'll tell you who I have my eyes on. I can't really say what place they're going to come in quite yet.
You want to do top five, and then you don't have to be like I left anybody out.
Yeah.
You go with just four.
I think Grayson Murphy on the women's side, she's someone definitely to have your eye on, especially since she kind of lost her trail season last year. I think she's just coming in a lot hungrier. She like raced in here and there, but she had an injury and wasn't able to like do the world championships, for example, which I know she was really bummed about. Ollie Ostrander, just interested to see how she does. This being her first trail race in a bit. Is she doubling? Is she doing the double or is she just doing? Yeah. Okay. So seeing how she like does on the two different types, I know she has had incredible race results at Mount Marathon. And that's an up down, but just having to like double it back. But she is a steeple chaser. And if anything we've learned, steeple chasers tend to translate pretty well to trails. So I'm just excited to see where she's at in this phase of her running career. Janelle Links, like she was injured last year, but like when she's on, like I never count her out. She's incredibly tough. So her signing up tells me that she's like ready to go. Alex Lawson on the trail team that Paul mentioned is another woman that I'm looking out for, or young woman, just having that cross-country skiing background and now having the mentorship of Andy, Allie, Grayson, and Adam. I think that's incredibly helpful. There was another woman who I'm just like interested to see how she does. Her name is skipping me, but she has like a lot of road results. But this is kind of like her first trail race. I think it's Lisa. I'd have to look it back up. Do you have in front of you?
You had one, Abby McNulty, I think you highlighted. Was that one of them?
Yeah. Yep. Like, I just always love when people are trying out the sport and come from those other facets of trail running. And then other people you just can't count out are like Bailey Kolaskowski. I always butcher her last name. Sorry, Bailey. She's incredibly tough, and I could see her really like doing well on the up-down course. And then on the guy side, sorry, I dove way too deep in the women's side.
I'm sure just for the record, you skipped Allie Mack. I just want you to throw that out there.
She's not on the list yet.
My God.
She's not technically listed yet.
Fair.
She hasn't proven herself to me, you know. Yes, Allie Mack. How can I not forget her? In my head, I'm just like, she already has the spot. So sometimes she just like slips my mind. Allie Mack, I think what's most the thing I'm just in so awe of her is her ability to double. Is like she can just back up these performances like on the same weekend. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised if she took both crowns over the weekend, just because that's how she works. And she kind of just has one speed, which is really amazing. So it would be nice to see her back out there again, since I think her last race was a 50K. So this is kind of returning back to her bread and butter. Any other obvious choices that I'm missing? Rachel. Yeah, she was on the team last year. She's a younger athlete. I would in my head, she's still kind of like next gen, up and coming. I think her best years are ahead of her. She is really fast. Like she has some really quick PRs. And so, yeah, I just think she's going to get stronger and stronger. And she's what's it called? A really good uphiller. So I think she's going to do incredibly well on the VK. And who else?
The other ones I was thinking, Megan Lacey, because I know her training's been spot on. She was talking about how she didn't have a great year last year. Sam Lewis has been on the team. You know, I'm really curious to see where she's at. My dark horse one is Lila Gaudreau, who nobody outside of New England is going to know. But she like wins 50Ks everywhere in New England. She's 20, I think. And she was winning 50Ks at 18, but she was also like winning 5Ks. It wasn't like she had slowed down. So I'm very curious, like whether she might sneak in and do something. Because she's running, I think she's running in college right now. But like if I go through like, yeah, she was third at Loon in 2021, but then she's like first at this 50K and first at the Maine Marathon, second at the Millinocket Marathon. Those are road races. Like Sugarloaf Marathon, another road race. So I'm very curious to see, like, who knows, she might sneak in. I don't know, Tom, if you have others you were thinking of either.
No, that's pretty much, I mean, there's some that I don't know. I just don't know who they are. And then going through the results, I'm like, wow, all right. I mean, there's some grinders. I mean, like that, we were talking earlier. I don't know who Gwen Rudy is. She was fourth overall at Javelina. And sorry, fourth woman at Javelina. And then at Broken Arrow, she was only seventh, but she did every distance. She got first at they call it the crown jewel of Broken Arrow. Okay. Like that seems like a really hard thing. So I think most of the women we've covered, but there's some out there that are going to be, I think, tough.
Yeah. And then for me, like, admittedly, I don't know as much about the men's side just because I pay more attention to the women's side, but it feels to me like a more veteran race in terms of like who I would pick for the team as well. I'm sure that I will be totally surprised by some person that I don't know, but like in my head, it's like Dan Kurtz, Joe Gray, Chad Hall, not really a veteran, but I mean, still has been in the sport of running for a long time. After watching him at Pikes Peak last year, like, I don't know. I don't think there's any counting him out in my head. Max King, can't ever count Max King out for a team spot. But yeah, I don't know, Danny, what do you think on the men's side?
Yeah, I would agree with those. And then also Mike Popetroy. I have like a soft spot for people who like finish in that like 3rd to 9th place ranges in races sometimes, because I feel like there's a certain thing in the mind that when you come back the next year, you're just like, the hunger is, I wouldn't say more, but it's different. And so he got 5th last year, I believe, in the qualifying race. So just, or at Loon. So yeah, I think that's another person to look out for. And then Joseph D'Amore, I'm pretty sure he's been on a team before.
Yeah, he was on the team last year. Well,
there you go. Yeah.
He was on the 40K team last year, but he's also an amazing climber too. So, I mean, he definitely can do the short stuff. The other ones I'm curious. Well, Garrett Heath, like Edinburgh Crest, like he ran at Loon last year. Like, I'm curious to see how somebody like him, how he does. First of all, he's never done an up-down mountain champs. So he might be insanely good from cross country at it. But I'm also curious to see on a more pure uphill like this year, where Loon has like when we were talking about Upper Walking Boss, there's a 500-foot descent right before Upper Walking Boss. So if you're just a pure climber, you may not do well at it. And so I'm curious to see like how he does. And then the other one is Everett Hackett. Everett was second last year at Mount Washington. He's a roadie, but he trains with Eric Blake. So he knows how to climb. And this is his second, like he was Olympic trials marathoner, 218 marathoner. He definitely is looking to get more into trail stuff. And now he's had a year under his belt of trying out trail stuff. So I'm very curious to see, whether he's now upped his game on the trails, if it's the same as the roads too.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about Kirsch. We didn't talk about Dan.
Yeah,
no,
Dan
actually,
Kurtz for sure.
MK did. She
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry.
She was saying Dan. Yeah.
No, that's okay.
Then,
Dan Kurtz was my dark horse for the whole year. So
we got Morgan Elliott. You got Mason Copey. And then what do you do with McDonald's? 2-time back-to-back Leadville 100 winner. Where do you put him?
Yeah,
he's got the lungs, that's for sure.
Right?
He's
coming from elevation on the sea level, short little distance.
Has he ever done any shorter races like this before?
I don't think so.
He did Washington last year, and I think he was like
he did Loon. He did Loon.
That's right.
2020. And he won. It wasn't a championship. He crushed it.
Okay. Yeah. I honestly would say he's another dark horse. Like there's athletes that if they have a focused block, even if they're specialists and say a longer distances, like I would say not count them out, especially if this is one of his goals. If you're a 2-time race winner of Leadville, I would say that you're pretty tough.
Yeah.
It would be an understatement.
I think he has the third fastest time on the course too. So, it's not like there wasn't competition. He's moving.
Yeah.
He's moving, pushing from the front.
Yeah.
If he takes it out, game over. His confidence is out of the roof, and I'm calling him. He's winning the whole thing. No chance.
Danny, do you have Pierre Pinoyer? Is that how you say his name? I'm probably butchering that. I'm sorry, Pierre. I think Danny has this one highlighted, and I'm just reading it now that he was 2 seconds off of David Sinclair's course record on the Kismet Cliff Run. And if you could be that close to David Sinclair, you're probably, definitely a good choice.
Kismet is no joke. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Kismet's an East Coast, like hiking trail. Right. It's all just hiking trail. So it's an absolutely brutal up and down. I'm really curious to see how he does on the multi-lap up and down. I'm not sure on the climb alone he'll have the speed, but I totally see him like picking people off on the descent on the up down on the second day. It's going to be interesting to see.
He also may be the nicest human on the planet.
He's a coffee. He roasts coffee for a living, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Doesn't he? Yeah, for running weights. Yeah.
Is he going to be providing coffee out of his car after the race?
If Drummond's there, we'll see if he'll bring some coffee. Yeah.
Right.
All right. So obviously this sounds like a really exciting race to watch, and it will be live streamed this year. Yeah. So we had some questions about just the live streaming in general. Who is doing the live streaming for you guys?
As in what? I guess.
Like, is there a company or are you guys doing it?
We're gonna do it. This is good. So
we're
last year
it's DIY. We're East Coast.
We do our own stuff.
Nice.
We don't have all that money to spend on that.
603 live streaming.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's really what it's going to be.
Yes.
So we were at Whiteface and working with Ian and Ellie, and we on the ride home they called me and they said, "Do you want to do Loon?" And I'm like, "That's in 5 days. Like I don't think we can add that to Loon right now. It's it's a championship. It's going to be big enough." Like, and he talked me into it. We set it up. Paul did the commentary with Ellie on the yard stream, and the biggest problem was, and why it lacked I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but it didn't go as smooth as it could have, is we didn't know that all of the ski lifts actually have Wi-Fi. We just needed them turned on. So Loon this year will same thing. So now we've gone to Sunapee, and it should be much better. We've invested the money in the cameras. It should be pretty good. We've been working with the Yardstream and YouTube, and hopefully this goes smoother. We have a company. We actually do have a company that this guy he builds jumbotrons. So we'll have a jumbotron at the base, so you can watch the vertical finish.
Whoa!
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So cool.
We've had this conversation, like, how in the sport, how do we make this user friendly? How do we get more spectators? It's not, I mean, if you're not waking up to run the race at 8 a.m., are you really going to wake up at 8 a.m. to go watch somebody run through the woods? So if we can, and this is more of a sponsorship, this may take too long to talk about, but it's, if we can't get sponsors in the East Coast on the ground, can we get them on our YouTube channel? You know what I mean? Do we start hey, we have 10,000 viewers. Can we sell advertising space? If we can't be at the forefront of getting sponsorship money there, then we have to use technology to do it. And I think that's going to be our next step, where we just try to take it to the next level for this year and see how it goes. Make the investment on the equipment that we need, and then kind of go from there.
Well, and
that, or I'm going to be poor.
Well, Sunapee does have much better cell coverage than, like, Loon has this whole dead spot, which was half the course, unfortunately. So it was like, and at the same time, like, when I look back at the YouTube, it's like 2,200 people watched me just talk for an hour, because we had nothing. Like, I'm like, all right, if we can get that many just watching us talk, think if we could actually show the race. So that's what we're hoping this year is, we have 4 or 5 video spots along the course. We have a couple people who are top runners who aren't racing, who are also going to try and follow the lead packs as well for part of it. So hopefully get that European feel to it. Because
that East Coast feel. You guys are
what I always think of, like, to me, like, Italy is the Mecca, and I haven't been to UTMB, so I shouldn't count that in, but Italy to me is the Mecca of short mountain running. And you go there and it's like a religion. And like every time Worlds has been there, it's like there's more fans for that than if the Pope, maybe that's too strong, but it's like, I just offended hopefully I didn't offend anyone, but no, it's just like huge crowds. Like, I remember one time at Worlds, it was running through the marble mines at Caseta di Massa, and there's literally a guy with a chainsaw. He had the blade removed, but he's a kilometer from the finish, and for the entire race, he's just sitting there revving it, cheering along. And it's like, that's the atmosphere we would love to get at short mountain races in the US. I'm not sure we'll ever get there, but like, we figure this is our first chance, is to see if we can get people watching it on video and streaming and stuff. Because there were a good number of followers last year. So this year with actual video, who knows?
You'll get your classic running nerds like ourselves. And then I know parents will be stoked. My parents are so spoiled now, because like the very first race that I ran that was big was Broken Arrow, and it was, the whole thing was live streamed. And now every time I run a race, they're like, so where can we watch it? And I'm like, they're not all live streamed. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. But also just like, I feel this is one of the most consumable parts of our sport. Like these short, punchy races, everyone's pretty much close to each other. Even if you're in like that 10 to 20 spot, like within minutes, people are finishing. And then elevate that people are vying for a world spot. Like there's so many storylines that are already buzzing in my head that I just want to see on this live stream. Like, is it Grayson and Allie? I just realized that Grayson, Allie and Allie, like all together, like to the finish. Is Joe going to be able to defend his title? Is Max going to be just like reeling in like 10 people on the last downhill? Like, this is all stuff I can't wait to see on this video. So that's really exciting. And I mean, to the sponsors out there, Paul and Tom, obviously get it done and like figure it out. So please take their live stream into account, because you guys just like figured it out on your own. You're not even like bringing in a team of people. And I just think that's really cool that you're taking that initiative to help further the sport in that way.
And it's so exciting to see people just like redline themselves into a blackout state on a mountain.
Yeah. And you can always reuse that footage to like promote other races and like the world championships. And That's incredible. So yeah, congrats on that. Can't wait to see it. And however it turns out, like the effort put in is definitely being seen. So thank you. Yeah.
Are you guys going to be doing, are you following athletes on foot with cameras? Do you guys have drones? What's going to be like the main way that you
So I think there will be, I find out more tomorrow, but I think drones will be allowed. I think we'll have one of those, but I'd like to do, some mid trail stuff where we can just set up a camera and let it go. And then, we have some runners that'll go, and then we'll have the finish line as well. Yeah.
Cool. Also,
watch.
Small tangential plug for people out there who aren't necessarily into competing in the sport. There's a big need for camera people right now in this sport, and like being able to actually like see the people. I took a shot at it during the Golden Trail this last year, and I was terrible. So don't hire me. I totally missed the runners, but just know that is another thing in this sport that's actually really starting to catch on. There's a need for it. So that's incredibly exciting.
But see, you'd be great at the commentary stuff.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Maybe I'll try that. Cool. So
all you have to do is wake up in time for the race, and we can put you on this. You guys can talk just like this, and we'll make it happen.
Just let us know.
Yeah.
I'm asking you right now.
He's I'm asking
serious. You right
if
now.
You guys would like to be
part of the we'll check our calendars.
Yeah. Well, and you've got 2 days worth of, if you say, I want to do this day, or you'll love the first day so much you'll be fighting over doing the second day.
Yes.
Who gets the lead. Yeah.
Okay, we'll definitely take it into consideration. Dang, putting us on the spot, Tom. Gosh.
Hey, this is how I get it done.
We're honored.
Gets it done. They get it done. Awesome. Well, it's been great to talk to both of you guys and get previews of the course. Again, reminder to the folks out there that you could still sign up for both of these races. You could sign up for one, you could sign up for both, first day, second day, April 29th and 30th, Sunapee Resort in New Hampshire, New York.
Mm-hmm. New
Hampshire, yeah. And the top 4 spots are, the top 3 women and the top 4 men in the VK. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
And that's because Allie already got a spot. It's not that we're giving fewer spots to women.
Yes.
Yes.
And then top 4 on both sides for the up and down classic team. And the last day to sign up is April 27th. So you can sign up basically down to the wire.
Until we're on the mountain marking the course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys have any parting thoughts or anything you want to say?
I just wanted to thank you both for starting this podcast, because I feel like this is the time for sub ultra stuff. It's like taken off, and I'm just so excited that you've created this avenue for this and many other episodes. So thank you.
Thanks. It's mostly just a way for Danny and I to get to talk to each other like multiple times a week about things that we really like to talk about already.
You know what? Whatever works, it's fine. If that's it's good. Yeah, we're good with it. But no, seriously, it's really appreciated. Like, I love the one with Andy and Grayson, and it's just nice to hear and see the focus on the short stuff. So it's great.
Thank you.
And we'll see you in Austria.
Yes. I will see you in Austria. Awesome. Well, thank you guys again for coming on. And this has been the Sub Hub Podcast.